Oh boy, here we go again with another Marvel film. Thor, Love and Thunder. So here we go again. Thor, Love and Thunder is directed by Taika Waititi and based on the plot of Thor once again played by Chris Hemsworth in this movie, who is once again having another midlife crisis. Whilst at the same time though, his ex-girlfriend Jane, once again played by Natalie Portman in this movie, now has his powers. And then essentially at the same time though, Gorr the God Butcher, the villain of this movie played by Christian Bale, is thrown into the mix and causes quite a few complications for our main characters, so have to save the day before it's too late. And that's basically the plot for Thor, Love and Thunder. And honestly, surprise, surprise, I am not a fan of this film. But at the same time though, I do think it's one of the better films of Marvel's Phase 4, whatever you want to call it. Like, you know, it started with Black Widow, and then it went to like Shang-Chi, Eternals, and so on and so on and so on. This is probably the best film of Phase 4, if you will. And, you know, it does have some good moments in there. And it's not awful. I didn't come out of this movie hating it. But I also didn't come out of this movie particularly loving it either. I just came out of this movie and went, that was fine. If it didn't exist, I don't think I could ever need it. But it was okay to watch, and, you know, it wasn't awful, like I said before. I've seen much worse Marvel movies in the past couple of years, like Eternals. I hated that movie, and I do think that this film is better than Shang-Chi. I think it's better than Black Widow. I think it's better than Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, or as I like to call it, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Meandering. And also, I feel there's another one in there which I'm forgetting. Oh, Spider-Man No Way Home. I wouldn't say it's better than Spider-Man No Way Home, actually, but this is one of the better, you know, Marvel Phase 4 movies. But at the same time, though, getting off the Phase 4 stuff, because I don't really care about that, but it's one of the better newer Marvel movies, that's what I'm trying to say. But the thing is, though, my problem with the film is just simply that there's way too much comedy in there. Honestly, it feels like a film that keeps tripping over itself. It's got quite a lot of good ideas in there, and quite a lot of emotional themes, but the thing is, though, they never feel emotional, and nothing feels moving in this movie, and when it does, it's just kind of thrown in there. Like, it does feel like there's a good movie in there somewhere, but I can't find it. It's kind of like Doctor Strange the Multiverse of Meandering again. You know, I can't find a good movie in here. It does feel like Taika Waititi, who, you know, is a decent director in my opinion. It feels like he came in this movie, made the movie he wanted, but then they gave it to Kevin Feige, you know, the head of Marvel Studios. They gave it to Kevin Feige, and he chopped it up into the movie that he wanted. So, in the end, it feels more like a studio project. Like, don't be wrong, you can tell this is a Taika Waititi film, things like that, but still, it feels like a studio product. It feels like that, you know, almost filler movie in between the Marvel films. It feels like, oh, we're just going to put one out here now because we can. Like we had, what did we have recently? I've literally forgot the time. Okay, we had Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Meandering recently, and we got, you know, Black Panther 2 coming soon. This feels like the Marvel film just put in there for the sake of a summer release, which is fine, but there's nothing to this movie. It's just, I don't know what the intention was with this film. There's some good parts about it. There were some interesting moments. I liked all the stuff with Gorr, which I'll go into a bit later. But it's just meh. You know, I didn't hate it, because hating it would involve me getting emotionally involved, which I never did. And that's the other problem. There's not a compelling story there, in my opinion. In fact, the most compelling thing in this movie is Gorr. This should have been a Gorr the God Butcher film, and Thor should have been, like, thrown in there as, you know, the antagonist for Gorr. Have a Marvel villain film for once. I don't know, do something different. Because, like, DC do that, you know, Birds of Prey and Joker and so on and so on and so on. And I think that when DC does that, it starts to stand out. Like, Joker is a brilliant film, in my opinion, because it's something very different than your typical, you know, save the day superhero movie. And that's the same with Birds of Prey. But the thing is with this movie, I wanted to be a Gorr the God Butcher story rather than a Thor story. Don't be wrong, have Thor in there, that's fine. But at the same time, though, this film just feels exhaustive, which is another big problem which I'll get onto a bit later, but it just feels exhaustive. And it does feel like it should have been a Gorr the God Butcher movie. I'm far more interested in that character. You know, much like Morbius, which I think is one of the worst super movies ever made, but much like Morbius, you know, I came at Morbius and went, if that film was about Matt Smith's character in that movie, I think I would have enjoyed it a bit more, actually, because Matt Smith was eating up the, you know, he was chewing the scene in the best way possible in that movie, and I actually quite enjoyed him in that film. But here, it feels like, you know, Christian Bale is brilliant. Every scene he's in, he steals scene, and I loved, you know, that storm with Gorr the God Butcher. much. We didn't get enough of him, in my opinion. Whenever he's on screen, it's like, yes, this is a movie I want to see. But then all this stuff, Thor, Mighty Thor, Jane Foster, who becomes Thor now, Valkyrie, Korg, and all that lot of stuff. That stuff doesn't really interest me. I've seen that done in other Marvel movies in the past, with like Ant-Man, or just even Doctor Strange, that might. That sort of corny comedy. I've seen it done in the past. I don't need to see it done again here. But then they rehash it here, much like they do with Thor Ragnarok, and it just becomes, a bit naff, to be honest. But the thing is, though, if you did the film about Gorr the God Butcher, you've got my interest. But the thing is, though, it's not about Gorr the God Butcher. It's about Thor, and in doing that, it becomes exhausting. Taika Waititi, who directed this movie, is a good director, in my opinion. He's not a brilliant director. I don't think he's quite as good as some people make him out to be, but he's a good director, in my opinion. I like two of his movies. I'm quite a big fan of Hunt for the Wilder People. I think that is actually a really enjoyable film. I don't find it that funny, I've got to admit, but I think it's really enjoyable. And also, I'm a big fan of the What We Do in the Shadows movie, which he co-directed with Jermaine Clements. I'm a big fan of that movie as well, for it's really funny to watch. But as for his other films, I'm not the biggest fan of Jojo Rabbit. I've got to admit, on reflection, I don't think it's a bad movie, but I don't think it's funny enough, and I don't think it's emotional enough. And then you get to Thor Ragnarok, which is obviously the Thor movie for this one, and he directed that as well. And I think Thor Ragnarok is, again, a fine film. I admire what it's trying to do. You can clearly tell it's a Taika Waititi film. It's visually quite different than the previous Thor films. And by the way, I should say here, I'm not a fan of the third Thor film, and I'm also not a fan of Thor the Dark World. I just think that's a terrible movie, but anyway, that's neither here or there. But Thor Ragnarok, though, is a movie I admire what it's trying to do, but again, I didn't really get along with that. There's parts of Thor Ragnarok which I really enjoy. Like, every time the Immigrant song was played, I was like, oh yes, this is a movie I want to see. But then it just had way too much comedy, which just didn't work for me. And I feel the same way about this movie as well. There's so much comedy in this film which just falls flat for me. And I want to laugh, but I'm not doing. And that's the problem. I'm sitting there going, okay, I understand this is a joke, but it feels like a joke that you'd get in some sort of rubbish American comedy that, people would talk about for a week, like a 5% of what matters and no one really care about. That's what it feels like. It feels like really corny American jokes that I just don't really find that funny, to be honest. Which I want to find funny, but I just don't. And it's not that I don't find Marvel humour funny at all. If you watch Guardians of the Galaxy movies, I really enjoy the humour in those films. Granted, it's a bit more James Gunn-esque, so perhaps that's why I enjoy it, but still, I enjoy the humour in Guardians of the Galaxy quite a lot. And at the same time, I should say, the Guardians of the Galaxy are in the first 10 minutes of this movie. Not really a big spoiler, it's been in the trailers, of course it has. But yeah, so in the first 10 minutes of the film, and they were good. I always enjoy watching the Guardians of the Galaxy in any movie they're in. I'm not the biggest fan of the recent two Avengers movies, but I still enjoy watching them in those movies. And I enjoyed watching him in the first 10 minutes of this film as well. Kind of wish I were in it more. But at the same time, though, we got the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special coming this Christmas, and also the Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which I'm looking forward to quite a lot. But yes, nonetheless, I enjoy watching this film, and like I said before, I enjoy the humour in the Guardians of the Galaxy films. I can't wait for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and also, I relatively enjoy the humour in the Tom Holland spy movies. I don't think it's brilliant, but I do enjoy the humour in all three of those films, whether it's Homecoming, Far From Home, or No Way Home, and things like that. The thing is, though, for all the time, the humour in Marvel just falls flat for me, like I said before. I almost just, I want to laugh, and I'm sitting there going, okay, I understand you're making a joke there, but I just don't find it funny. And I'm sitting there in a cinema, by the way, at about 11 o'clock this morning. I filmed this the same day I saw the film, and, I was in a cinema at 11 o'clock. I know some people laughing at a couple of jokes in the movie, but at the same time, though, they weren't laughing at a lot of it. And granted, I did see the film about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I dare say it went to a 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock screening, which I did do with Doctor Strange. More people were reacting to it, but at the same time, though, the humour for me in this movie, there was just too much, in my opinion, which made me not care about the characters, about the story. It made it just feel like, oh god, it made it feel like I was tripping over itself, if you get what I mean. Every time there'd be an aspect of an interesting moment in this film, they'd have to throw some comedy in there. I feel like they have to throw some comedy in there just to, keep the audience's attention. People can't retain attention in these Marvel movies for more than 2 minutes. That's what it feels like. And that's another problem in this film. The fact that the editing as well, the editing is so choppy. Shots don't linger long enough. It is really interesting shots sometimes of, superheroes like Valkyrie or Mighty Thor, or Thor himself, or Korg, coming in and striding on these horses, having these really cool fighting poses. But then the camera cuts really quickly. It's well, I want to see more of that. I don't go into a Thor movie expecting something like The Godfather or something like that. Of course I don't. But at the same time, though, you know, if you show me a couple of awesome Thor moments, I'm all in for it. But then it felt like the Thor moments as movie, it felt like they had to cut really quickly just in case the viewers got bored. And I'm just like, I'm not a huge Marvel fan. I don't know if you can tell that. I'm really not a huge Marvel fan. But the thing is, though, you know, I can imagine a lot of Marvel viewers actually retaining attention for more than 5 minutes, and it feels, and this is kind of a problem in many action movies nowadays, to be honest, not just Marvel movies, although it happens quite a lot in Marvel movies nowadays. It feels like they don't think people's attention can last for 10 minutes. It really doesn't. It's like we have to have this quick in editing so people go, oh, look what's going on there. Oh, oh, oh. We have to have this frenetic editing because we can't, because we're a big blockbuster and we feel people are going to get bored if we let this action sequence or let this, you know, one shot in this action sequence, should I say, last for too long. And it's just, the editing of this movie felt really choppy. Kind of like quite a lot was left on the editing floor, which is fine if the movie was held together better. But I just felt the movie was very messy. More messy than Thor Ragnarok as well. Like Thor Ragnarok, again, I'm mad what I was trying to do, but at least that movie didn't feel as messy as this one. This movie just felt messy and incoherent, to be honest, which I didn't expect to say, but heck, here we are. At the same time, though, going back into Taika Waititi, it doesn't really feel like his heart's in this movie. Like I said before, Taika Waititi is a good director, in my opinion. He's not a brilliant director. I know he's won an Oscar, but he didn't win an Oscar for directing. He won an Oscar for his adapted screenplay for Jojo Rabbit, so slightly different instance there. But still, nevertheless, you know, I do think that Taika Waititi can direct. He did a good job, you know, directing that one episode, or was it the last episode of Mandalorian Season 1, which is one thing I've mentioned yet. But still, he's a good director. But it doesn't feel like his heart's in his movie. Like, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Jojo Rabbit, you can clearly tell that his heart's in that film. He's telling a story that he's always wanted to tell. Even so, it's not really for me. But still, at the same time, though, you can tell his heart's in that movie. You can tell his heart is in there with Hunt for the Wilder People as well. And I think you can tell his heart's in Thor Ragnarok more. But here, it just kind of feels exhausted. The whole movie feels like we've done this before. Like the mighty Thor storyline, you know, Jane Foster becomes Thor, who becomes Mighty Thor, should I say. That's all new. That's all interesting. The Gorr Butcher stuff, that's all new. That's all interesting. But then everything else, like Korg, Thor, Valkyrie, and a lot of this stuff in this movie feels like we've already seen it before. It feels like a rehash of Thor Ragnarok, and not a good one. It almost feels like a pseudo version of Thor Ragnarok, if you will. And it feels exhausting. You know, none of the comedy really lands because it just feels like once it gets to one thing to the next. Honestly, just like I said before, it feels filler. Nothing in this movie feels groundbreaking for the MCU in any sort of way. I'm not saying, you know, it has to. Just, you know, provide me with an enjoyable time. But at the same time, though, it feels exhausted. A lot of the comedy just feels like we've done this before. And Taika Waititi feels like he's done it before as well. So he's just doing it for the sake of doing it. Like, I honestly do think that Taika Waititi didn't really want to make this movie. But then Kevin Feige, you know, saw the success of Thor Ragnarok and thought, actually, I'm going to offer him all his money in the world so he can do the next Thor film. And, you know, Taika Waititi accepted it because he wouldn't want a big paycheck from Marvel. So he's done it, but I just don't really feel his heart's there. Like, there is a heart in this movie, you know, the relationship between Thor and Mighty Thor, you know, Thor and Jane Foster. But it doesn't feel like Taika Waititi. It doesn't feel like the director's heart is there. It doesn't feel like he's put his all into this movie. And I just wish I got more from it. That's what I'm saying. I didn't come out of this movie hating it, but I came out of the movie thinking, if I didn't see that, I don't feel I'd ever be missing out. And I think that's a problem in this film. And I don't know. Like I said before, there were some good parts in there. Like the Michael Giacchino score was great. You know, Michael Giacchino, I'm a huge fan of him. I've spoken about before. Love his score for The Incredibles. Liked his score for Lightyear. Love his score for Jurassic World films. Love his score for the recent Planet of the Apes movies. Loved his score for the Batman. And I do think he does a good job with the score for this movie as well. You know, there's a track on the soundtrack, which I think is brilliant, called Almost Got a Big New Hammer, which is a great track on the soundtrack, by the way, which is a brilliant piece of music. And I do feel the musical score is good. It works well in the movie, which is what you need a musical score to do. Also, visually, it's quite a nice film to watch. I don't think the visuals are quite as amazing as some people are making out to be, but the visuals aren't bad. And at the same time, though, there's some storylines to me which I really enjoyed. I actually kind of enjoyed the Mighty Thor storyline. You know, as much as I do like Natalie Portman as an actress, I never really enjoyed her character in the previous Thor films, you know, the first Thor and in Thor the Dark World. I just kind of thought her chemistry with Chris Hemsworth was a bit lackluster in those two movies, but it's good in this movie. You believe in their relationship, which works. But it just kind of feels like they were bringing back, you know, Jane Foster's character because they hadn't really finished that character off in the previous Thor films, and so they kind of felt like they had to bring her back here because they just, it didn't, I don't understand that. I just kind of felt they had to do that. There wasn't a good reason to bring her back, in my opinion. I liked to bring her back. I liked what they did with her in this film. I actually quite enjoyed watching that. I was a bit sceptical about it, but I enjoyed watching her storyline in this movie. But it didn't feel necessary, that's what I'm saying. If she wasn't in this movie, I dare say a lot of it would have been the same. Don't get me wrong, the emotion might not have been there, but like I've already spoken about before, the emotion really worked from this film because it just kind of felt like it was coming out of nowhere. Also, I enjoyed the Gorr the God Butcher storyline. I've already spoken about that. Christian Bale is brilliant, one of the best Marvel villains. But I want to see more of him. Honestly, if you have Christian Bale in your movie, use him! It's bloody Christian Bale, Oscar-winning Christian Bale. The guy played the best Batman, in my opinion. Absolutely terrific in so many films. I just can't think of the top of my head right now. He's terrific in Thor 3 He's terrific in The Fighters, terrific in American Hustle, and so on and so on and so on. He's terrific in so many movies. It's Christian Bale. Use him more. And it's like, there's a lot of moments where you see, you know, Thor, Valkyrie, and Mighty Thor talking about the destruction that Gorr the God Butcher's doing. I'm like, I want to see that. Stop talking about it. I want to see it. It's a Marvel movie. Just give me a fun time. I'm not going into these movies expecting to get the newest piece of amazing cinema. But at the same time, though, I want to have a fun time and give me a good story. And that's not what this film did. If you game the story of Gorr the God Butcher and instead twist it around, like had Thor as, you know, the antagonist of the movie for that story, I would have really enjoyed that. But that's not what this film is. I think Gorr the God Butcher is a great character. I would have liked to see more of him. Won't give anything away there. I was about to give something away. But still, at the same time, though, you know, I just feel like he had a bit of a waste potential. Like, I did read an interview, or I read like a bit of an interview of, you know, Christian Bale recently, where he said basically he filmed a scene with Peter Dinklage and Jeff Goldblum, which is cut from the film. Where was that? Why would you, first of all, why would you cut Jeff Goldblum and Peter Dinklage out of your movie? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that scene was necessary to be in there. I'm not saying I was sitting in the cinema watching the film going, if only Jeff Goldblum and Peter Dinklage were here to save this film. I wasn't doing that. But at the same time, though, why the hell would you cut a scene between Christian Bale, you know, Peter Dinklage and Jeff Goldblum playing their characters in this film? Why would you cut that? I don't know. But I just would have liked this film to be Gorr the God Butcher the movie. We didn't need a Thor 4. We didn't need Thor Love and Thunder. We didn't need the story after Thor Ragnarok. You know, we've already seen Thor going through midlife crisis in like 3 movies now, maybe 4. You know, going through midlife crisis, like I remember in Thor Ragnarok. He's going through midlife crisis in Infinity War, midlife crisis in Endgame, midlife crisis in this movie. We didn't need to see it done again. And if you did a Gorr the God Butcher story, I can tell you now, I would have loved this movie. And at the same time, though, I think it would have been better and more emotional story. You didn't even need to get Taika Waititi director. Get a different director. I don't know. Just get out the sandbox a bit and do something different. Do a villain origin story, and this was your chance to do something like that. Because all the gore stuff, I enjoyed. There's this great action sequence, which is visually, you know, done in black and white in the movie, which is really good to watch in my opinion. There's 5 sequences between Valkyrie, Mighty Thor, and Gorr the God Butcher, and I was like, oh, this is really good. But there's not enough of that. And I just... You can see my frustration, because I do mean it from the bottom of my heart. I want to go into every single Marvel movie and every single Marvel TV show and love the hell out of them. And I have seen Marvel stuff in the past, which I have loved. But I didn't love this movie. I really didn't. And I really wanted to. I really did. It is what it is in the end. It's not an awful film. It's not even a bad film, really, either. I thought it was fine. Much like I did with Thor Ragnarok. I thought it was fine. And if you love this movie, that is fantastic. You know, love what you love and let no one else tell you otherwise. Even someone like me. Even because I idolise movie doesn't mean you shouldn't. You know, there's a lot of Marvel movies I don't like. There's a lot of movies, universe, which people love, which I don't really like. So, it's all subjective in the end. And it's fine if you enjoy this movie. In fact, that's great. I love when someone loves a movie more than I do. You know, so if you love this movie, that is fantastic. And if you haven't seen it yet, I hope you go into it and I hope you have the time of your life. And there were some good parts about it, like the Michael Giacchino score, the Gorr the God Butcher storyline, Mighty Thor storyline, and also I quite enjoyed the last 5 minutes of the movie as well. I thought that was done done quite well. I enjoyed the opening action sequence, well, towards the opening with the Guardians of the Galaxy. I enjoyed seeing their reintroduction, and also I enjoyed moments in the movie. There are parts which are good. It feels like there's a good movie in there. It feels like the emotion is in there somewhere. But when the emotion comes in this movie, when you're meant to feel sad, when you're meant to be moved by this story that's being told, it just feels like it comes out of nowhere. And in the end, the film just feels okay. That's what it feels like. It feels okay. And it does feel like a filler movie. It didn't feel like I had to have it. It feels exhaustive. And it doesn't really feel like Taika Waititi's heart's in there. And it feels like the performances are all great as well, which is one thing I've only mentioned. But it does feel like it should be a Gorr the God Butcher movie. If it was a Gorr the God Butcher film, I would love it. But because it's a Thor film, and because the Thor films have now become comedies, what we thought of Ragnarok and what with this movie, all the time the comedies are falling flat for me. I laughed at about a couple of jokes, laughed about 5% of the film, probably less than that. But at the same time, though, because it's a comedy, so much of the film just feels like it's tripping over itself, and that it's not really providing much of an enjoyable time for me. I wanted to go on this really fun ride with all these characters in this film, and even so, I wasn't the biggest on Thor Ragnarok. I went to film with an open mind. You can believe me or not there, but the truth is, I did. And I came out of this film, just went, yeah, if I don't see that, it'd be absolutely fine. But I did, and, you know, it was alright. And all in all, I'm going to say that Thor Love and Thunder is thunderously exhaustive, and I'm also going to say that it's about a 4.5 out of 10. You know, like I said before, it's all subjective, and if you love this movie, that's amazing. You know, love what you love and let no one else tell you otherwise. Just because I don't like a movie doesn't mean a thing. I'm a nobody. It's absolutely fine that I did not enjoy this film. You know what, though? When the next Marvel movie comes out, what's it going to be, Black Panther 2? I'm going to go into that movie and want it to be the next best film, my next favourite film. But oh God. I don't know, Marvel's not really for me. I don't think you can tell, like the majority of Marvel stuff that I've viewed on this channel recently hasn't really been for me. And I kind of disappointed about Miss Marvel right now as well. Miss Marvel, and I will do my review of Miss Marvel sometime next week. You know, that sounded really fun in my opinion, and now it just comes to be like, I don't really care anymore. And that's kind of how I feel with this film as well. You know, Thor Love and Thunder started off fun, it started off exciting. I enjoyed the opening action sequence, even so the continuity in the opening action sequence was a bit all over the place. And even so some of the editing was a bit, I don't know, a bit off in my opinion, some of the pacing was a bit off. I enjoyed the opening action sequence, I did. But then after that, it just became a bit meh. It just became, I wasn't interested in the story that was being told. I didn't feel compelled into the story. I didn't feel, you know, I didn't feel immersed. That's the thing. I just didn't feel immersed into this film whatsoever. I wish it was a Gorr the God Butcher movie. I've said that before and I'll say it again. I wish it was, because I think it'd be far more interesting. I think Christian Bale's character, Gorr the God Butcher, is the most interesting part of the movie. You know, Mighty Thor's storyline is good as well. But at the same time, though, all the emotion of that storyline just kind of feels like it's come out of nowhere, because it feels like this film's tripping over itself because of all the comedy used, which just falls flat. And it has its moments. It has its moments. But I kind of felt that it was exhaustive. If this movie didn't exist, then it'd be absolutely fine in my opinion. It feels like a filler Marvel movie, and I wish it was better. I truly did. And I do think that Taika Waititi is a decent director, but I don't think his heart was in this film. And I feel that's his biggest problem. And so, all in all, I didn't hate it, but I also didn't like it either. And I do think that Thor Love and Thunder is thunderously exhaustive, and I also think it's a 4.5 out of 10 from me. Anyway guys, what do you think of Thor Love and Thunder? Please you comment down below and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Anyway guys, thank you as always for watching, and if you haven't yet, please click down below and subscribe on this video. I'm looking forward to many more, both film and TVs, come very soon on this channel. See you guys again soon, but bye for now, bye!